Hello there, I'm another Magento dev. In this video we're going to have a look at installing and testing Stripe. The reason I'm going to show you this is because payment gateways are obviously a fundamental part of building a site, and from a dev's perspective it's always a little bit annoying having to do all the sort of admin around the developing of a site, because installing a payment gateway, particularly one that doesn't come by default like Stripe, has to happen, and you generally get the task to do it, but most of the time it's few and far between. You forget how to do it, you forget that you need to go get a module, buy it even though it's free, you forget that you need to install it, you forget how to configure it, sometimes you're guilty of not testing it. Let's put all that to bed now, and I'm just going to do a run through just so it stays fresh in your mind for your next Magento project. Obviously it might be helpful for if you wanted to me running through this process. If you need to install it, you might have found my video because you need to install it for a client now and you just want a quick refresher. Well, I'll keep it quick. So what do we need? Where do we start? So essentially I've got my demo store. So you're always going to be testing your payment gateways locally before you do anything else, and you're going to be testing them in a sandbox mode as well. If you don't, I'll be after you, because there's absolutely no way you want to be throwing payment gateways up on live sites or even staging sites and messing about with the client, sort of, because remember the client owns this, so you don't want to be messing about without in terms of putting transactions through on the live, Sage. I was going to say SagePay then. We don't want to be doing it on SagePay either. Our video will be coming with regards to Payo and SagePay. But this one's Stripe. And the reason I picked Stripe is, for me, this one should be the default Magento payment gateway, without a doubt. It has a brilliant test mode, to just cover off what I was saying there. And it's got one of the best sort of API interfaces, and it's got one of the best sort of front ends as well for the UI, for being able to for the customer actually transacting on your site. So if you're a dev and you're in a position where you need to advise your client on what payment gateway would be best, I'd go with Stripe. I'm not paid by Stripe, by the way. This video isn't sponsored by Stripe. It's just an opinion. Right then. So essentially, what we've got is our API credentials. I will just bank them over there. It's only a test account, so if you caught that single frame that I left on there with my secret key exposed, it's only a test secret key, so go nuts. But I'm going to keep it off screen anyway. Right, so what do we need? Well, you need access to the admin, because you're going to be doing some config. You need access to the code base, and you're going to be installing it, as always, using Composer. Where do we start? The best thing to do is just to quickly search in a search engine for Magento, installing Stripe connector in Magento 2. Brings you up at the actual Stripe docs, and it gives you some real good step-by-step. So this is the bit that always annoys me, but is always the thing that I never sort of prepared for in my mind when I'm about to quote on how long it's going to take to do this. You got to go buy it from the Adobe Marketplace. Now, the reason you need to do that is because you need a copy of it in your account. So there it is, I've just bought it, it's free. But you need a copy of it in your account based off your auth keys. Okay, and I'm gonna cut these out. But my auth keys are the connection that I have with the Magento repo, and that's because it's a free Magento module on the marketplace. These keys in your auth JSON, are going to be the ones that allow Composer to go get the Stripe, your version of the Stripe connector, whether it be community version or enterprise in old language version, if there is different versions. Who knows? Right. So the next thing we're going to do is we're just going to bang it in there using Composer. So there we go. Go over to your terminal, and we're going to bang it in there. So this is going to install it for me and its dependencies. So I am running PHP 8.1 on my local, because I advise you get all your sites up to PHP if you can. Have a look at some of my videos on my channel, so have a look at some of the pitfalls when embarking on that fun journey. But get your sites upgraded as soon as possible to 8.1. Skip 8.0. by the way, go to 8.1. So anyway, that's now installed, and we can tell that by going into Composer, and it should be in here somewhere. Stripe. There we go. 3.3. Lovely stuff. Okay, so now that's in there. I'm going to run the big four, which is setup, upgrade, DI compile, static content deploy, and cache clean. So that's just going to basically install the module for me. And I can see my changes here. These essentially, and I bang on about this all the time, but if you're deploying your site properly through something like Deploybot, Jenkins, Deploy HQ, those types of things, and you're sending your files to the server, you only want to be sending these files, because this is because then on your server you're going to be running Composer install. Voila, you're going to install the new version of Stripe, and it's going to basically mimic this process, which is a manual process locally for testing, getting it set up. It's going to automate that process. When you install this on your live server or your staging server even, you're going to be able, obviously there's going to be config for you to be done in the admin, so this will install the module, but the module will be switched off, and then you have to enable it in the admin, and you'll have to do all your setup within the various sort of environments, if you like your production environment. You're going to connect to the live account, test it, what have you. Staging is the next one after this. We're going to be testing it using test accounts, and we're going to be testing it locally for Stripe, and we're going to be testing it locally, and then the next stage we would test it on staging, and still in test mode, and you want to keep your staging site in test mode, in sandbox mode. And what I mean by that in terms of Stripe is this is test mode. So while this is doing its thing, I'll show you this, this is Stripe Backend. So this is sort of like a version of what the client will see. Now, I've set up a free account, and by default, because I'm not a business, it's keeping me in test mode. It's for developers, right? So that's cool. It wants me to activate my account to access live data, but for the purposes of this video, I'm not going to need to. If your client set this up already, they will have a developer account, so test mode, and they'll be able to invite you to that, but you'll also be able to see the live mode as well. They should be in the process of, or if not, already got live mode set up, but it's really easy to just toggle between them, by clicking on that button, and you can see your test mode, and you can see your live mode. Right, so the things you're going to need from this account are, in the sort of near future, is going to be your publishable key and your secret key, and these are your PK test publishable key and PK test secret key. We're going to need these for installing it and setting it up locally. Right, so it's nearly finished doing setup install. So basically, go to Stripe, set up an account using your email address, and you call it something. You get a test version of something, Magento test, whatever you want to call it, and then sort of have it at this point, which is it's going to give you access to the API, but it's all going to be in test mode. So tick, do that. Right then, so now we've got I'll just put this back over here. Now we should have this installed in the admin. So we're just going to jump into so I ran the big four. This was this stage here. Basically, that's what I've done. And that's obviously in production mode, but I'm a believer of running that anyway, rather than absolutely caning your machine and trying to refresh it in the browser. So because developer mode will obviously build out those things in the browser, but I don't like doing it. Okay, so now I'm going to jump into my config. So stores configuration, you will find all payment gateway settings in here, sales, and then payment methods. Right, so there we are. We've got Stripe sat in there as if that's where it's always lived. Configure, general settings, mode test, very important. Publishable key, so we know what that is. Just going to do this off screen. So I'm basically taking it from here. In fact, I could have done it on screen, but it's over here now. I'll show you it in a sec. Okay, I paste all that in there, and I'm going to do the test secret API key. You just have to take my word for it. copy that as well. Bang that in there. Okay, I can show you this because I just wanted to make sure that it did that. So that's what it will do, right? And then once you got that in, what we'll do is save config, see what happens. Then we're going to do the rest of the setup. You can see it's loading. Right, it did come up there. You might want to pause the video, but I forgot to mention, but it came up there with regards to setting up the Stripe webhooks. There is a command you can run to do that, but as you can see, when I've saved it with my correct information, it's done it for me automatically. So I will probably leave it at that. That means we're okay. It's probably going to work. Say probably because, as always, I don't rehearse these things. And if something goes wrong, we'll work through it and you'll learn something and I'll learn something. Okay, general settings, setup, good. Payments enabled, yes. So you can sort of see that you're going to be able to you're just getting the sort of basic install. It's all kind of ready to go, which is really good. Really good and easy for a dev. So I've saved those settings, right? And now I'm going to go to my front end of my website. I added something into the cart earlier because I was testing that this was actually working, this site. So I'll just go for this tank top. Proceed to checkout. Okay, so obviously we've got to get past the old this stage. So I'm going to fun, right? So tell you what, it's going to auto bloody populate these fields for me, which I'm not comfortable with on the internet. So I'm going to put some fake stuff in, and then I'm going to pull it back. Okay, right, I'm all set up there. So, one for the Alan Partridge fans there. 10 King Road, Ipswich. That's a niche reference. One for the kids as well. It's over 20 years old now. Well over. So, next. And if you get that reference, that's good for you. Pay online is our Stripe. Okay, so now look, this is what I was talking about. It's giving us our Stripe integration. This is what the customer would see, and yeah, that's all looking good. So we need to test it now with some test details, and now I believe this is giving us a hint because we're in test mode. Now there's a few, I tell you what, some extra information. Now, how do we get test cards? Now I think you can get them off Stripe. I'm just on a search for, because you can get different versions of the test cards, and what I mean by that is some you can test 3D secure, some are like if you want to test what happens when the card hasn't got enough funds and all that. You can get different number combinations that are kind of set up by Stripe, that give you different. There you go. So this is at Docs Testing at Stripe, brilliant. So you got standard VSS, as I was saying. You got loads of different scenarios, if you like, cards with different scenarios, different companies. But the standard one's 424242, and when it's any 3 digits, so obviously like 1, 2, 3, and then any future date, and that they're all pretty much that. So let's test this is working. So I'm going to paste that in there, my 4242, any future date. So we'll say like 0325. And then 1, 2, 3, and then we'll place this order and see what happens. So that's it, tested. So then you get to see the sort of thank you page if you need to do any dev on that and all that type of stuff, and that's like tested basically. That's like the very, very base minimum in it of what a client would expect you to do as a developer when setting up a payment gateway for them. So let's have a quick look at how that affects the admin. So, and there is some sort of idiosyncrasies with Stripe that I've noticed, and seeing as though you've stayed to nearly the end of the video, I'm going to tell you for one. So if you've got a stock integration with another system that uses the API to take orders out of your site, one thing to note with the Stripe integration versus so my transactions here, look, pending, and pending, that's important. Pending means you ain't taking any money, right? Because it was a test transaction, so it hasn't taken any money. So obviously it succeeded, it's all good, but it hasn't taken any money. And you can view it in Stripe. So if we just have a quick look in Stripe, should show you the transaction. Yeah, so you can test it's all gone through. So if you see an order that hasn't gone through, so is pending, and that's full, you know, this is to the merchants, and Vard your merchants and your client to this, that do not send that order. Obviously this is obvious, but this is sort of like something that I just wanted to note. Like, I've been asked it recently, like, don't send the order if the total due isn't paid, because that means also there hasn't been an invoice generated. Look, right? So it's just something to be aware of. But anyway, right, in terms of the integration, for some reason Stripe within the, well, I'll say for some reason, it's a fair reason, but it doesn't output any customer group for a guest transaction. What I mean by that is, most other gateways set the customer group ID to 0, right? On the API, you know, on the object of the API. Stripe just doesn't set it at all, and that can screw up some integrations if the integration at the other end is expecting a 0. If you get me. So Stripe's doing the right thing. It doesn't need to set a 0 because 0 is 0, right? But what's happening at the other end is some integrations, if they've been written in a specific way, basically what I'm saying is your integration needs to make sure it's written to check the presence of that field before in the object, or that key in the object before doing something with it. Don't expect a 0 because Stripe isn't going to send it. So that will, you know, if you suddenly go with Stripe from using PayPal, which does set the 0 for a customer, then just so in case that happens, because I know a lot of people and a lot of developers deal with integrations with other third-party systems with Stripe, with Magento. So I just thought it's something that I come across recently. It was a bit of an head scratcher as for why this was happening, but that was why I figured it out. Yeah, so that's Stripe end-to-end tested. I hope that video was useful. Nice, short and sweet one. I'm going to cover some other payment gateways because they're a bone of contention across developers and solution specialists and clients who should deal with it. I think devs, they need to know the process. So if that's been useful for you, give me a like, subscribe, obviously, would be great, and whack a comment in there as well. So tell me how good it was. Yeah, so other than that, I'll see you in the next one.